Welcome back to Faster and Louder. Today we're going to be talking about electric fan upgrades. So I'm underneath the hood here on my 73 Javelin AMX. If you haven't watched a whole lot of videos about this, I just put up a part 1 and part 2 of the entire build. It's still pretty long, but it's a very condensed version of what I've done to the car so far. That being said, I did want to kind of go over what I have right now. I already have electric fans in my car. I have an aluminum radiator. Everything's pretty brand new. I only have like 500 miles on this car. So if you take a look right here, this is a Alloy Works radiator. It has two fans with an aluminum shroud on here. I had issues with these fans already. One time I had a fan, actually just the wiring came loose of the motor and I had to get like a whole new motor and stuff. That was a whole different debacle. I have a video up on my channel about that also if you're interested. But these are two 10-inch fans and they are rated to push 1,750 CFM air through these two fans. And most of the time this does the trick. These fans are in no way like horrible. It's just I live in Arizona, it's always hot here, and eventually I'm gonna get AC on this car also, which is really just gonna make matters worse. And that brings me to my solution, which is putting on Ford Contour fans. This is what I got, but we're gonna get to this in just a minute because I wanna tell you what I didn't get. My original plan was to get a Contour fan from a Contour in a junkyard, but I went to like 2 different junkyards. I was gonna make this like a big part of this video, was hunting for the Contour fans, but it just came up with nothing. I went to 2 huge pick and pull yards that we have here in Phoenix, and I did find Contours, I did find Cougars, and I even found like a Mercury Mystique or 2, and it either already had all the stuff that I needed taken out, or it was the wrong model. It was like a 4-cylinder model with a smaller fan assembly and all that stuff, so I did not have very much luck. I was not happy after walking around in 100+ degree temperatures for like 3 hours trying to find stuff. But that brings me to what I kind of settled on here. I did a little bit of research, and right away I started hearing some bad stuff. I was hearing that Dorman was pretty much the most popular brand, but even Dorman wasn't really pushing nearly as many CFMs as the OEM style. And yeah, I don't know. I tried to do some research into what would be the best option, but it seems like pretty much anything aftermarket is supposedly not as good as the OEM style. And then I actually heard, and this is probably just all anecdotal, has no real basis in reality, but I heard that TYC brand is actually rated for 3,500 CFM. So whether that's right or not, I don't know. I actually did eventually find a website with the TYC fan listed on there, and it said 3,500 maximum RPM, but I don't know, like that doesn't sound right. What I ended up doing was I looked up all these on Rock Auto, and the cheapest one they had was $98, which is honestly not bad, because if I got the fan with the wiring harness and all that connected to everything, to the fan and everything, like at a pick and pull, it would end up being like $80 plus tax anyways, and that's for something that's been sitting in a junkyard for who knows how long. I ended up looking on eBay, and I found a bunch of no-name brands there, and that's the box I just showed you. It's some no-name brand. It was like $72 shipped on eBay, which is like the other brand I was looking at was like $120 on Rock Auto plus shipping, so it would have been probably about close to $150. So this is $75 cheaper buying this one off of eBay. But I'm not entirely sure who makes what. I think that there's probably at least 3 different manufacturers for this fan. This one you'll see right here, it actually says made in Taiwan. And I looked, first thing I was thinking is like maybe this is Dorman and it's just a no-name box and stuff. And Dorman is actually Thailand, and not Taiwan. But TYC, that brand I was talking about before, that supposedly has a 3,500 CFM rating, they're also made in Taiwan. So what I'm thinking is, most of them are probably Taiwan or Thailand, and then I think there's like at least one manufacturer in China also. So it's hard to say. I can't really say with 100% certainty what brand this is, but I just wanted to kind of put that information out there. Do what you will with that information. I figured that I would open up this fan first of all. I want to check the condition of it, maybe see if there's any clues as to who might have actually made this fan. Then I'll show you some of the other components that I have that go with this swap. It's not a very heavy box. It's all plastic, which is how OEM is too. I mean, it's from like a mid-90s car design, so I'm not really surprised. Not the most amazing packaging job. Don't know if you guys can see that, but they basically just stuck a couple little styrofoam blocks in there, and that's about it. I mean, as long as it doesn't get stepped on, I guess it's okay. Alright, so here it is. Both the motors, they do seem to be moving freely. That's good. This is the resistor. This is basically, some of these actually don't have this assembled with the entire fan assembly. So if you do want this, then it's a plus. I'm probably not even going to use it, so it's kind of pointless. But you can leave this on here. You can buy a connector for it on Rock Auto. It's like 30 bucks or something like that. Kind of expensive for what it is, honestly. But you can use this to use like a low speed function on it. These are technically just one speed, but when you have the low speed activated, it'll run power through this resistor, and it'll actually slow down the fan speed for both the fans, I believe. There's connectors on each motor. There's one right here, there's one right here, and if you want to do this somewhat easy, they have the connectors for these on Rock Auto also. I think that they're something like $7 a piece. So I ordered those. Those are on the way still didn't get those. But they only have 2 wires each fan. One is power, one is ground. It's a really easy setup. So I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna wire everything, but I'm not gonna run anything through the resistor. And I will explain kind of the wiring, what I'm gonna do. I am definitely not a wiring expert, so just take it with a grain of salt. A lot of this I was just kind of told what to do. The other thing that I need to do with these two, though, is they have the mounting tabs, I guess you'd call it, on here. It almost looks like this probably slides into something on the factory, you know, like on an actual contour, and then it bolts on with these hooks. Obviously not going to be doing that exactly, but from what I can tell, these can be modified to work in my car or on my radiator. So I'm gonna see what I can actually do. If that doesn't work, I'm probably gonna like maybe use some of these existing holes to just go all the way through and basically use those like weird zip tie strap type of things to go through the radiator and attach it, kind of like you would with like an auxiliary cooler or something. So I might do that. I did notice too that this tab right here is probably gonna have to be cut off, because this would probably be touching my radiator up here, pretty sure, or at least just making it so it doesn't fit right. So I'll have to do something about that. Other than that, it appears like everything's good. Everything looks to be in good shape and all that, so I'm happy about that, especially with the minimal packaging they do. This is really where things get complicated and kind of confusing, especially if you don't know a lot about automotive electronics or electronics in general, like me. But if you have any kind of mechanical know-how at all and some sort of confidence, then you might be able to make it work, which is pretty much what I'm hoping is true about me. I bought this actual relay box on Amazon. I think it was $28 for this box. And honestly, there's probably easier slash cheaper ways to do this. I was kind of going for like the cheapest and easiest, and those things don't necessarily go hand in hand. The easiest thing to do would be just get a digital fan controller. They're pretty expensive. It's gonna be like $300 for a whole setup for one of those. But it's easy because the relays are built in. It has all these fan controls, all this stuff, fail safes. It makes the whole thing really easy. You don't have to do all this crap. But these come with like fuses loaded in. They come with relays loaded in. These are 40 amp, 5-pin relays, and this is kind of new for me, so I'm gonna explain it the best I can. But essentially what's happening here, like I labeled these, this one's low fan, this is high fan, and then this one over here, oops, is a fan switch, I'm calling it. So essentially what's happening is everything, power is coming in through one of these over here. I believe it's this one. You're gonna get power only when the key is switched. It's gonna come in through that switch, which basically is like an on-off switch for power to the relays. So, and then these also don't turn on unless it gets a signal from your temperature switch to do that, pretty much. So I mean, that's kind of like a really basic way of explaining it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like power in, there's like a 12-volt switch. I try to label these. There's power to each fan, and there's the signal. I'm using a BMW switch. Let me see if I have that. Okay, so this is the BMW switch right here. So if you want to use this, here's a couple important bits of information. You're gonna want to know this. This is a metric fitting right here, and I have a fitting in the box here. It's this right here. But basically, this is metric here, where it actually would go into your like MPT fitting on your car. This obviously won't work on anything like a Javelin would have. So you have to thread it into this, and then this is a 3/8 MPT here. I can't remember what the actual metric size is, but I will put this in my description. I'll put a link for this. If I don't, please remind me. So this BMW temperature switch, this is the number for it, this 6131-1378073. I believe this one in particular is something like, I think it kicks on about 190, and then there's a second switch that's built into this that comes on around 200, and then it'll cool all the way down. I don't know what the actual shutoff is. I guess it'd just be less than the 190. As soon as it gets under that, probably just kick back off. But it's a 3-prong connector, and this is the other part. So hopefully you're still following along here. This is the other part that gets confusing with these, or kind of difficult, I should say. You need a factory connector, or that's generally how a lot of people have done it in the past. You gotta have this connector for this, and the only way to get it nowadays is either find little parts separately, which costs like $60 freaking to make this connector, or you can do what I'm gonna do and use basically just a butt connector, like from one of those kits, you know, with like spade connectors and all that stuff. I'll show it later in the video, but I'm just gonna use 3 of those, and they fit on here like perfectly. I'm just gonna try to make it look nice and kind of make do with that, but it's honestly the best and cheapest option for that. And there are other options for your temp switch and all that stuff too. And oh, another thing, they don't call this a coolant temperature switch like you think they would. It's a radiator fan switch. So just to let you know that. And there is another one that looks exactly like this. I actually have it, but I'll give you that part number also. But it's basically 10 degrees lower for everything than this one. So the main thing is you can use this. It's one switch instead of having 2 separate switches to have like a low and a high. All that being said, even though I have the 2 different switches or like temperature settings, it's not going to work exactly the way that it would if I was using the resistor to have like the actual lower fan speed. So how I think that this is going to work, from what I can tell, is when that first temperature hits like the 190, the first fan is going to come on high, and then once it gets up to like 200 or whatever it is, the second fan's going to come on high. But I'm okay with it. Sorry, that's a lot of explaining, and I'm sorry, but I think that's most of it. If I forgot anything, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I really need to get these fans kind of just like on the car and just mock it up and kind of see what I need to do to actually get these mounted correctly, and then I'll probably just kind of go from there and just start hooking up stuff. But I do have the fans that are in there still, so I'm definitely not going to attempt to do this whole thing before duct tape drags, because I still want to make it. Like, every time I try to do something like this, something happens and then the car is down for like 2 weeks. So I'm gonna wait till I have like a nice amount of time where I don't have to worry so much about like rushing to get this done. But here in a few days, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the rest of this, and for you guys it'll be like 5 seconds. This fan does not just automatically connect to your radiator. So there's a couple things I think I'm gonna have to do here. So I'm gonna try to show you what I'm going to do before I actually do it. One thing that I found was really cool about this is this, like the width of this shroud is almost exactly the total width of the radiator on the Javelin. I think it's 24 inches exactly for this, and it's like 24 and 1/8 inches is like the actual area of the radiator. And then for the like top to bottom, I have something like 15 inches, and it's like 15 and a half on the radiator. So it's almost perfect, like this actual area of the shroud. But as I showed you before, these tabs are just not gonna work. Obviously, on the radiator on the Javelin, it's like flush with the actual shroud here where it connects to the actual radiator, and there's the 4 mounting points. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to get my little wheel, and I'm just gonna pretty much just trim this off. I'm gonna try to leave this flat surface right here just in case. It'll, you know, potentially give me some more area to put like a new tab on there. I'm planning on kind of just getting something wide enough that I can get a couple bolts through the plastic shroud and, you know, get it nice and fastened on there, and then have like a tab, like a 90-degree angle that'll be flat here, so I can mount it to the radiator the way the current one is. So I'm gonna do all that later, but I just want to get these trimmed off really quick. Well, here goes something. I don't know if it's gonna be perfect or whatever, but I should probably put on some safety glasses if I can find them. Molten chunks of plastic are never really comfortable, especially when it's in your eyeball. The smell is great though. Love it. Yeah, it looks pretty ugly right now, but I'm just gonna clean off all the crusties, and I'm gonna try to smooth this out a little bit, and it should look pretty good. Like, it'd be a nice little area to mount my new tab. Now we gotta do 3 more of these. As you can see here, it's pretty much flat now. Ugh, I got chunks of plastic all over the place. There's a little clip here that was at the top that kind of like protrudes towards the radiator side a little bit. So I just went ahead and snipped that whole thing off. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit later. I just wanted to get that part done so I can stop thinking about it. I'm inching more and more towards actually getting this installed on the car. I did just do duct tape drags. If you want to watch that video, it should be up by now. Everything actually went pretty well for duct tape drags. I was like 180 degrees pretty much the entire way, but my fans are probably working the entire time also because of the thermostat temperature, or not because of the thermostat, but the switch for the fans is like 180, so it's just on all the freaking time. But yeah, I mean, I only got up to like 205, I think, at the very hottest. So not horrible, but it really wasn't. It wasn't even that hot. It was maybe like 90 degrees or so, and it was already starting to get the temperature creep when it was sitting there. So I'm really looking forward to getting this done so I can more efficiently cool this car. So I've been a little busy. I went and I picked up some materials for mounting the fan shroud to the actual radiator. So this is kind of what I have. I'm going to explain a little bit about the process of how I came to this solution. I took off the existing tabs, trimmed everything down. I had like a little sanding bit on my drill, and I just kind of like sanded it down, made it pretty smooth so I could have this aluminum piece lay pretty flush on the sides of the shroud here. Yeah, this is a step drill bit, by the way. I know that that's not for sanding. What I did is I found this, I think this is 36 inches, 3 feet of aluminum angle stock. This is like 20 bucks at Home Depot. So this is, I would say this is not completely necessary. There's other ways to do this. I actually even considered just like using one of these holes, existing holes, and then kind of like, you know, bringing it through here and just doing like a big old zip tie to hold it on to the existing spots. But then it would be holding the radiator too if I use the existing hardware holes and all that. So I didn't really want to do that. There is another way that I've heard of also where people will use like those auxiliary like transmission cooler zip tie things that have like the circle on one side and it just goes all the way through your radiator and has like the other circle on the other side. I was considering doing that also because it would just be cheaper and easier, but doing that is a little scary because this thing weighs like a good 15 pounds, you know, and I just feel like it might be too heavy to hang on the radiator like that, and it would kind of like move around a little bit because of the fans and, you know, being on a car. So I figured probably not a great idea for that. So I measured how far this needs to be down from the top, because you could just make this the same exact height as the entire shroud. I figured I would drop it down just a little bit so, you know, you're not getting your arm caught on that corner all the time. I didn't want to like try to smooth out these corners and do all that fancy crap, so I just figured I'd just move it down a little bit. And I made marks where my holes need to go through the actual shroud and everything. As you can see, I already drilled holes into the actual shroud. And then I also used my step drill to make holes that are big enough that I can actually get this on the existing, or like over the existing holes on the radiator shroud and everything. So these, as it is right now, I just need to cut this. This is my line for the end of the bracket here. I need to cut right here, and then I need to put the bolts onto the actual shroud, and then this will be pretty much ready for this side, and I'm just going to replicate this for the other side, and then I'll have both my brackets mounted, and then the shroud itself will be pretty much ready to go in the car. I haven't really done anything to the actual car yet, so the old fan setup is still in there and all that stuff. I'm just making sure I have everything 100% done for this before I start moving on to like taking out all the stuff, because I want to minimize my downtime with the car if possible. Do it. So this is what they both look like. They're basically just mirrored images of each other. I think I might do some sort of like Loctite on the hardware that's going to the actual shroud, because I pretty much never want those to come undone. So I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on there. I'm just hoping that it doesn't like do any damage to the plastic itself. I mean, it's really just gonna be sandwiched in there, so it should be totally fine. I'm gonna take whatever precaution I can to make, you know, this as trouble-free as possible. So there we have it. This is what it looks like. Very basic, but at the same time, I think this might be one of the more simple solutions to mounting this radiator fan shroud. Since, you know, obviously got to do some modifications, but I wouldn't say this is the cheapest option for you, but this might be the easiest. You don't have to bend metal, you don't really have to do anything besides drill some holes in it and cut it to size. And like I was saying, you could go longer, but I didn't really see the point in doing that since these bolt holes that actually mount it to the radiator support are so close together. I just figured this might keep it from flexing a little bit if I go you know, a little bit past it. I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference at all. I think like if you really wanted to get super trick about it, you could go more narrow. I don't really see the point of doing that though. The other reason was I didn't want to get close to the actual fan here, so you could bring it down maybe to like equal to where the other holes are or whatever, but I just figured this works better and looks pretty decent. I have my 12-volt probe connected to my battery right now, and I have leads going to either of the wires going to the connector on the actual motor. Now it's not really clear which wire does what. I guess there's probably a diagram online or something that tells you, but it comes with no instructions or anything like that, so I basically am testing which way it goes depending on which wire you connect to. I already did it the other way around and it went counterclockwise. There's an arrow on the other side of the motor that tells you which way it's supposed to spin, and you're really going to want to follow that or it's going to be blowing the wrong direction and it's not going to do anything really. So let me just connect this really quick. Okay, so I'm just going to put the lead on the end of the probe here, press 12 volts to it. Not too bad. It works. Before I start with more bench testing, I'll just point out that if you have the connector from Rock Auto like I do, and I'm assuming that they're all the same, but both of these are green with different stripes on it, or tracer lines on it. One has like a white tracer line, another one has a dark blue line on it. The white is going to be the one for power and the other is going to be for ground. If this looks like a mess, then that's because it is. Let me try to explain what's going on here best I can. I have my probe here. I have my power meter, my Harbor Freight power meter. There's a couple components here, a couple parts of this that make everything work. So first of all, we'll just start at the basics here. So I have power coming from the end of my probe, just using a small little lead, and it's going to the main power that's going to the switch relay. And then I have a 12-volt source switched, which is basically telling this the switch relay to allow power to go through it. And then I have a ground, so I have my power meter going to the ground, and I also have it going to a good ground source, just basically under my bench here. And then I have, for the power meter, I have it connected to, right now I have it connected to the low fan, and that's going to my power meter over here. So in order to test this, like if I put power to it right now and I check my power meter, there's going to be no power going through because my sensor, or like the wire that's going to the sensor, is disconnected right now. So I have to ground it in order for the circuit to complete, essentially. So if I stick that in the ground or just touch it to the ground when I'm giving power to it, and I have everything set up with a power meter, it'll show 12 volts. So, or it should show 12 volts. And then the same thing goes for the high. So if I switched it so my meter is connected to the high and I grounded the high to everything else over here and put power to it, I'll be showing 12 volts at the meter. And I already did everything and checked it. I checked it both ways. I checked it with it disconnected on both and connected on both. So it did exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be doing nothing when it's not connected, and it's supposed to be getting 12 volts when it is connected. So when that 12 volts does hit, you're going to get power going to the fans. So I have at this point successfully bench tested everything, so now I know my wiring is good in this relay box. The one thing I did kind of stumble on at first off camera was having fuses in the correct spaces here, just so power can be transmitted to the proper relays. So I will need to get higher amperage fuses for all these. I think the highest I have right now is like 30. So the only reason they're fine right now is because there's no actual load on anything. It's just going to the power meter. So if I did have these connected, I should blow these fuses pretty much immediately. Because it does spike quite a bit when you first turn these on. I've seen it can spike as high as 100 amps, and it's just for a very split second. But these, the way they're wired and everything, should be fine. I do have 80 amp relays instead of 40 amp relays here, but it runs at a constant 30 amps, so these should be more than sufficient, especially the way that they're wired up and everything. But yeah, now I know that it's all good to go, so I can kind of just start getting everything situated. I do need to get this mounted also. I'm gonna have to figure out what kind of wiring I can do ahead of time, so I can make this a little easier. I'm probably gonna like extend some of these coming off of here, because I'm gonna mount this kind of low, and I'll show you when I have a little more daylight. But everything's good. Fans work. I actually need to check that other fan just to make sure. But everything seems to be working. I'm pretty much 90% of the way there. Now it's just a matter of getting everything in the car. Let me catch you up here just a little bit. Last night I was off camera trying to make a little bit more progress on getting the fan shroud mounted to the actual radiator. So as you've already seen, I made the brackets and all that to actually put it on the radiator, and everything fits on the actual radiator, so that part's good at least. But I started to run into a lot more issues. Well, maybe not a lot more, but more issues. Come check it out. Right now I have the radiator basically just sitting in here. I have like a couple bolts loosely in here, kind of just holding it in place. What the real issue is this right here. That's not normal. Your water pump pulley is not supposed to be touching your fan shroud. And as you can see, I don't really have a lot of room to try to suck this fan shroud in closer to the actual radiator. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this just yet, but I think what I'm going to do first really is just try to trim down some of this plastic, because I think regardless I'm going to have to do that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to mark where the bolts on the pulley pump are actually touching, and I'm going to try to just trim out as much as I safely can in that area. So this is basically just a visual comparison between the two, the contour fan on the left and the Alloy Works fan shroud that comes with it on the right. The Alloy Works fan, or both these fans are only 10-inch fans, and these are 12-inch, and you can tell the difference. It's just more area on the actual shroud is fans. So even if these were exactly the same CFM, like they push the same amount of air, these would work because it's actually cooling more area on the radiator. These would work better. So yeah, I mean, it should be more area and more CFM, so it should be much better than the Alloy Work fans. You can kind of see where I have some silver marker. I tried to mark where the actual bolts are hitting, and it's roughly like a circle. Like, these are probably the most accurate ones where the bolts actually are, and so it's kind of in this general area. I might just like measure how far apart the bolts are and try to kind of like determine more accurately where they're at on here, so I don't mess with more than I absolutely have to, but it's pretty thick. Like the plastic on here, this isn't gonna hurt it, kind of like bringing it down a little bit. This could have been, you know, mostly flat here. You don't really start running into problems until you get to where the actual fan is, and that's not for like another inch plus, so I shouldn't have any problem getting rid of material. So I don't think I'm even gonna mess with the brackets. I'm gonna put some Loctite on those, because I forgot to do that last night, and put some Loctite on the hardware that actually attaches to the fan shroud, so that way it never comes loose. But yeah, I think we'll be good after that. So this is what I'm using on the drill bit. It's just like a sandpaper abrasive thing. It seems to be working really well. I already started in here. It's not too pretty just yet. I'll probably clean it up a little bit afterwards, but it digs into this plastic like nothing, so far so good. Alright, as you can see, I very crudely got this clearance quite a bit. So I think I have at least like 3/8 of an inch, maybe more, between the bolts and the actual shroud. I think it'll be more than sufficient. Now it's just a matter of kind of cleaning it up and making it look like I actually gave a crap, and you know, we'll go from there. Maybe I'll paint it, but I don't think it's actually worth all that trouble. I'm just gonna try to at least smooth it out a little bit. It will be easier to get on and off too. I kind of like radius this little bit right here. This didn't actually need to be trimmed, this piece, but bringing it down like this does make it easier to get, like, you know, over the bolts on the water pump pulley. Because otherwise this will be like straight across and it's a lot higher, and it's still a pain to get this on and off without kind of trimming that down a little bit. Probably could trim a little more down here if I really wanted to get crazy. Now that I mentioned it, probably gonna have to do it. I have everything wired up here. I extended the wires and ran it along the bottom as nicely as I could. And so I'm just calling this one my low fan. So that's what that is. This will be the wire for high. And then I have the two grounds just coming off to the side here. I'm gonna have them go separately to their own grounds. I was given the advice that you should use 2 separate grounds for each fan, because you know, if something happens where one ground comes off, then you just lose both fans. Whereas if you have a separate one, then, you know, there's a chance that you'll at least have one fan, so you can kind of limp along maybe. But yeah, I figured I'd just do that. It'd be really easy just to put these in here where it mounts to the actual radiator, so shouldn't be an issue there. I did already make a little, I guess you'd call it a template. It's just a piece of cardboard where I put the mounting holes on there to kind of figure out where it's at. I'm gonna trace the entire outline of the relay box with the lids back on it and all that, and I'm gonna figure out where exactly this is gonna go. I'm gonna try to figure that out. This is gonna be very close to each other in the car. I think I'm gonna put this down on the frame rail. Can't remember if I showed you that or not, but this is probably gonna be something like this. It's gonna be very close, and I'm just gonna wire it right up right there. Should be a pretty simple process. I don't think I need to extend any wires longer than they currently are, except for the battery positive, which is gonna go to exactly that, the positive terminal on the battery. So yeah, a couple little things to figure out, and then we'll be pretty much on the home stretch, just wiring stuff up and putting things back together. Alright, I have all the old stuff officially out of the car, except for the temperature sender. But I got the fan out, obviously. I already did that, got all the old relay stuff out. I have pretty much everything pre-terminated that I can do already. Like, this will go to the battery, but I'm gonna wait until it's actually in the car before I put the end on it and everything. But I got the ground ready to go. These, I think what I'm gonna do is basically just connect the fan stuff, since it's kind of on the bottom and harder to get to. I'm gonna like loosely do that and then kind of just put in the fans and the relay box at the same time. So I'll probably have Ivan or Randy help me when they come over on Sunday. And then yeah, the grounds will be put on when it gets put in also. And then for pretty much from there, it's just the wires for the actual temp switch. So I do need to decide. I have 2 switches here, and I already talked about these a little bit, I think, but yeah, one basically comes on around 180. The other one comes on at the other sensor that I have comes on at, I think, like 190 or 195. And as I already said, they have 2 temperatures on there too, so I kind of need to decide what I'm gonna do on that. Typically you want to match it to your thermostat setting, which is 180 in my car, but these will be running basically all the time. And I think that they're pretty much going to be running all the time no matter what. So I might just go with the one that's the lower temperature settings. I'm going to do a little more homework on that, and we'll come back to that. I also made the little template like I was talking about, little outline, and we're going to kind of just put this in here, and I need to figure out, using some references on the outside of the car, probably where to make the drill holes for the actual mount and all that, but this shouldn't be very difficult. I could probably pretty much finish this up tonight if I really was motivated to do it, but I want to hang out with my car guys, you know? Okay, so Ivan and I are over here kind of doing like the second half. He's under the car. My swing arm bushing keeps popping loose. Or yeah, that's it. Swing arm. It's not a motorcycle. Sway bar bushing keeps popping out, and yeah, he's just putting that back in really quick. But we got most of the stuff here. We got the relay box in I was talking about, so that's already in there. It's a matter of just wiring stuff up. I am going to put the new temp sender in here really quick also. Ivan and I have been out here. We were plugging away pretty good for a while, got most things in there the way that it should be, but the way that it's wired, this whole thing, it only really makes sense to wire it this way if you are going to be using the resistor on the fan shroud and you're going to be letting it control the fan speed that way and everything. So the schematics that I'm using, I pretty much need to change it so both relays are like independent of each other, so they're independently controlling each fan. And you could probably just simplify this and have it just kick on like, you know, high right away and just not even mess with any of that stuff, but we need to keep it complicated. So we're gonna do that, but there's a couple little wires I need to change around. I'm gonna eventually get like the final schematics for this, and I'm gonna put it in the video once I know everything works properly, and you can do it the way that I'm doing. But this will make it so your first temperature hits in your sensor, the BMW sensor that I have, and it'll kick on one fan, so that's like your low speed, and then it'll hit the second temperature and it'll kick on the other fan, and that's your high speed. And that's how that kind of works. It's like a rudimentary low and high speed, but it still kind of retains the same function as far as I'm concerned. So I'm gonna try to do that. There's actually just a couple little wires I need to switch. It's not that bad, and then hopefully that'll fix that issue. The other issue that I was having, and I think this may also fix it hopefully, is I have the key on, it's working, but when I turn it off, it's not turning it off, and I think that it might be because of some of the wiring, how it is. I'm thinking that it might fix it, but we're about to find out. Oh, it is already getting hot again. We keep dipping down below 100 and it goes right back over 100 again. So we're like 10 degrees over our normal high right now for October. Really sucks. But anyways, Ivan and I got a lot of stuff done on the car. We did have some issues off camera. I don't know if I expressed that exactly, but this whole thing is supposed to be wired assuming that you're going to use a resistor on the fan that I was talking about. So both of these relays would go through that one resistor on the fan shroud, and then it drops down the fan speed to make it low, and then just bypasses it to make it the high speed. So I didn't do that. I wanted to, like, my initial intent was to run it so the low and the high were on their own relays and they're wired to the fans individually, and that's not how I had it really. So we had to make the relays independent of each other, and I'm still having an issue with when I turn the key off, it's still running. So I don't know what is going on with that. So I'll probably post how I have everything. I'll put something on the video showing how everything is wired up, and maybe somebody that knows more can explain to me why it's not working, or maybe I just wired something wrong. I don't really know what's happening, but it does kick on, and it kicks back off the way that's supposed to. The fans do run for maybe like 5 minutes afterwards, like on the low fan, just trying to cool it back down. So it's not horrible, but it's kind of annoying. And the other thing I can't remember if I said anything about was this fan is supposed to kick on at 176 for low and 190-ish for high. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just the wrong part, maybe it's not calibrated correctly or something, but this one, it kicks on at the other temperatures for the other sensor. So I think it's just the wrong sensor. So it's kicking on at 195 and 210. And the fans do a great job at kicking it down so far, but I've only just idled the car sitting here in my backyard. So I'm gonna get out here before I die from heat stroke. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna see how it does. I took it on a short trip earlier. I don't even think it was long enough to kick the fan on at all. So hopefully I can get it running up to a good temperature, and I can kind of just verify that it's gonna do what it's supposed to do under a little bit of stress. Just dropped off some donations at Goodwill. Running right around, not even sure if you can see that. It's about 198. I think my first fan should be on right now. Just gonna let it get nice and hot. I'll head to the gas station really quick. You know I can't pass up one of those. See how it does. Looks like it's staying steady about 200 for now, so that's good. I think the fan's on. Well, the low fan stayed on pretty much the entire time I got gas. I got half a tank. It was at 200 when I turned it off, so I'm gonna turn it on and see where we're at. Just sitting here for, this is only like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Let's see, let's get it started and get the coolant flowing. Drop, like, oh yeah, it's going down still. God, I don't know if you can see any of this. It's like so bright. Looks like about 195, 190. So it dropped like 10 or 15 degrees just sitting here. So yeah, it's like 185 already. So that's good. I'm gonna drive around a little bit more, but so far this is way better than those Alloy Works fans. I hate those freaking things, so I'm glad I got rid of them. Like I said, I'm gonna put the schematics up here and you guys can tell me if I messed up something with the wiring, why it's not turning off all the way with the key. But honestly, I might just keep it this way regardless. But yeah, let me know if you know something more than I do. As always, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you like the video, leave a comment. That's it, man. Take it easy. Later.